The weather pattern continues to remain very active with yet more severe storms as we head into this evening, and yet another round and really amplifies going into Tuesday with likely a tornado outbreak unfolding across the upper Midwest. Then, along the cool front on Wednesday and Thursday, we'll have more storms along that front. Then, plus, we'll take you through your weekend ahead. So, let's take a look at the big picture and where we stand this morning. We've got that cooler air still continuing to come in from the northwest here. That's bringing all the cooler anomalies and actually some chillier rains for those areas into the Pacific Northwest, portions of Montana, back into Wyoming. But it's nothing but chilly further to the south. It's a lot of warm air advection, and that's pulling in that southwest wind. We've got the warm south winds coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. That's really amplifying and elevating those temperatures. Plus, we've got another colder pocket aloft that's going to be moving in, tapping into this warm sector. And that spells trouble again for the plains. And that's going to be the culprit of what's going to bring that tornado outbreak as we head into your Tuesday afternoon. So let's take a look at the satellite picture this morning and take you to the tropics because we are in hurricane season down there in the Pacific. It started a couple of days ago. We've already have several systems coming in off the Central America here. Fortunately, these are continuing westbound, but we're still going to continue to looking out for this region and across into the Atlantic. Pretty much high and dry. The season gets going around June the 1st. So right now, we just have some showers and thunderstorms in and around the Caribbean region, portions of the Bahamas, as well as into the Turks and Caicos. But all the action is in the U.S. And here's the cool front that we've been kind of talking about. Behind that, that's brought some chillier weather. And there's that subtropical jet stream pulling in all that moisture and feeding into this warm sector. And here's the leftover of all the activity that unfolded last night across the plains and especially there in Kansas with that significant wind threat. And then also we had some tornadoes as well. In fact, here are the latest storm reports. We talked about this into yesterday's update. Things got going around 3 or 4 o'clock into the afternoon, and every bit come into fruition. We have 13 tornado reports coming in from last night. These are very preliminary, but these are the filtered reports. So that's a significant event. We had that mesoscale convective complex that really kind of blew up across Kansas. And some of those winds did, in fact, produce 60, 70, 80, at one point, 90 miles an hour was clocked in Fowler, Kansas. And even Salina, Kansas actually checked in 100 miles an hour, folks. That's a significant event. And then there was that piece of it that dropped to the south that went across Oklahoma that produced that tornado emergency for Custer City, Oklahoma around 7:30 last night, and that continued to shift through the Yukon, the El Reno region, and as it moved in through the evening time frame. But yes, we had a pretty significant event unfolding last night. And even tonight, things are going to get ramped up again. So things are fairly on the calmer side right now. And I think they're going to remain somewhat calmer, but things kind of get going again around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but really start to bubble up as we head into the evening. Here's the latest convection model about 11 o'clock tonight. We're going to be seeing numerous supercell thunderstorms likely breaking out across portions of Montana. That will swing across areas of South Dakota, but especially get going there into Nebraska here with another significant wind threat as well and isolated tornado threat. But there's the warm front that will continue to lift further north through Des Moines and eventually heading up into Minneapolis. So you're going to get the pre-funnel boundary of more activity even for today, setting the stage for a more significant event as we head into tomorrow. And you're still going to be dealing with some isolated showers and thunderstorms across areas moving out of Chicago through areas of northern Indiana, as well as getting into Detroit. So it's going to remain very active, especially with this warm front surging so far north. And here's the setup. Right now, we do have that enhanced risk for severe storms really highlighted across areas of Nebraska. So I think things really kind of get going, areas and portions of Wyoming, but really amplifying as we head into eastern Colorado, but really get going as we head into Nebraska. There's where we have the more significant threat around North Platte, back into Goodland, all the way into Hastings, these areas could pick up again some of those 60, 70, maybe even upwards to 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that mesoscale convective complex moving across your region, and then weakening a little bit as it gets into areas of Omaha, back into the Des Moines region. But even you're going to have to still be concerned about stronger storms, even down into the Kansas City region, back into Springfield, all the way up into Chicago as well, back into Milwaukee, back into areas of La Crosse, as well as into Green Bay. With that warm front surging so far north, yes, even areas of Grand Rapids and Gaylord is still not out of the question to pick up some of those stronger wind gusts with some of those more stronger severe storms heading your way. So if we break it down over the next 24 hours as far as the wind threat goes, we're going to have that subtropical jet pulling in all that higher wind gusts across the Four Corners regions, but really starting to get going across areas of Nebraska. You can see the map on the far right-hand corner of the screen here. Anything that's highlighted in orange or red, that's upwards to 50, 60, going into that 70-mile-per-hour range across this region. So it's definitely going to be very windy for the next 24 hours, and even into areas of Iowa, going into Michigan as well. So don't let your guard down. But the main event, I think, is going to unfold on Tuesday with a much more significant system. Here's the overall dew points, and you can see this classic kind of dry line setup. But look what the moisture feed with that warm front surging so far north, that puts all this area into play. So yes, we're talking about you up there into central Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, as well as into Michigan. Those areas are into play for severe storms with the warm front surging so far north. And then we've got the deepening low pressure center that's going to be highlighted over areas of Iowa. I think things get going around 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, especially as it taps into a lot of higher Cape values, your convective available potential energy. And then at the same time, the tornado parameters are hitting pretty high around that 4 o'clock time frame, heading into Iowa, those areas into portions of Minnesota, getting into Wisconsin, going into the areas of western portions of Illinois. I think that's when things really start to amplify and get going and become more of a tornadic threat and definitely a higher wind threat. And that's just the beginning stages of what's to come. So right now, I think the Storm Prediction Center does in fact have that enhanced risk, but everything I'm looking at does look to go to moderate as we go into that likely afternoon update from them that's coming up. But for right now, we do have that enhanced risk in place for those areas into Kansas City, back into the Omaha region. It's this area right here, as well as into Springfield, back into Des Moines, as well as into Milwaukee, into La Crosse. But again, don't let your guard down, even up into Marquette, all the way up into Gaylord, back into Grand Rapids. And even further south, I think the instability reaches as far south as the Oklahoma City region, getting into the Tulsa region. So this is the whole area is definitely going to be on high alert for all three modes of severe storms. We're talking strong tornado possibility and EF2 type capability. And then some of those winds could be clocking again 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And definitely some larger hail producer storms, especially around right where that low pressure center is, into Iowa, western areas of Illinois, back into central and southern portions of Minnesota, getting into Wisconsin as we head into Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. And here's your tornado parameters as well. So right now, again, we still have that patched risk in place for a 10% probability within this area. But yeah, I even think this will likely be upgraded to possibly a 15% with that afternoon update. So yes, all dynamics are in play. So this whole atmosphere will be rotating as those supercells will be racing across this region as we head into Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. So definitely be on high alert within this region. And we kind of break it down for you as far as the mesoscale guidance here, with the low pressure center going to be really amplifying as we highlight over areas of Iowa. There you see really these discrete supercells forming along that boundary, and any one of these could be producing some very large hail, definitely some significant winds, and a tornado threat with them as well. So with these discreteness, that's what's concerning, as these will fishtail further south into Missouri, and back into portions of Kansas, and that gets going around 4, 5 o'clock into a Tuesday afternoon, and that's likely when we have the most significant tornado parameters as well. So, and that's just going to continue to move in eastbound as we head into your 10 o'clock time frame. So, as by 10 o'clock, we're going to see this whole complex really deepening. We've got a significant low pressure, likely down to the upper 980 range, and that will continue to unfold across Minnesota through Wisconsin, and then really get nasty by then around 10 o'clock in the evening or in and around the Chicago region, going back into central Illinois as well as into central Missouri, and then further south, reaching those areas into the Oklahoma City region on Tuesday. So it's definitely going to be a significant event and pretty bumpy between after that 4 o'clock time frame, especially on Tuesday afternoon. And look at the winds that the some of the high resolution guidance is kind of spitting out. I mean, pretty accurate. I mean, I showed you those winds yesterday approaching 80 to 100 miles an hour, and they did in fact actually verify with reports of those 80-mile-per-hour winds, 90-mile-per-hour winds in Fowler, Kansas, and in Salina, Kansas, 100-mile-per-hour winds. So that did in fact verify, and it's definitely concerning. It's printing the same picture again. Some of these areas producing some of those 60, 70, if or almost upwards to 90 miles an hour in some of these regions across Iowa, northern portions of Missouri, going into central and northern Illinois, northern portions of Indiana, back into Michigan here as Wisconsin, even though those areas into Minnesota can't be rolled out with some significant 60, maybe even 70-mile-per-hour wind gust as you head into your Tuesday afternoon time frame going into the evening. So if you look at the updrafts and where this is all going to originate, yes, I think things get going right there into Wyoming, and then really start to amplify going into tomorrow across Nebraska. And then there's the system that likely unfolds on Tuesday with more severe storms that will be moving across Iowa, southern portions of Minnesota, getting into Wisconsin, as well as central and northern Illinois, back into Missouri, and then lighter amounts as you head into eastern Kansas, and then further south into the Oklahoma City region, likely reaching possibly the Red River region into Oklahoma between now and Wednesday morning. But behind that, going into Wednesday, we'll have the cold front, right? So the cold front will be on the move. We still got the warm sector heading into your Wednesday. So now that shifts the severe threat further south with that battle zone that will be draped across. But it's likely going to diminish the tornado threat, and it's likely becoming more of a wind and an isolated larger hail threat. But nonetheless, along this cold front, we still going to be looking at some more severe storms that's really highlighted across this boundary that drapes all the way into portions of Ohio, getting into Indiana, back into areas of Kentucky, getting into western Tennessee, back into areas of Missouri, Arkansas, getting now into further south into the Oklahoma region, southeastern Oklahoma, but now fishtailing further south into the North Texas, portions of central Texas, and then feeding into East Texas, heading into your Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night time frame, with that heavier rains unfolding across this region, with the low pressure center continuing to lift further north. Now we're talking down to a 985, but we're in Canada by then. And of course, look at that on the backside, actually producing a little bit of snow with it as well. But further south, with the cool front leading the charge, that's where the heavier rains and the instability would likely be over your Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night time frame. And of course, the heavier rains would unfold as well. So this area has actually been pretty saturated as of late, and you're going to get more heavy rain. So these areas across into the green would likely unfold about an inch of rain. But once you head into the yellow shaded region, those could actually produce possibly 1 to even upwards to isolated 3-inch amounts across southeastern portions of Oklahoma, getting into Arkansas as well as into Missouri. But of course, the cool front continues to shift a little bit further south. So now it's pushing further south, and we have a little bit of a short wave that will be coming across. We have more instability that's going to be tapping into on Thursday with the resurgent of those Cape values. And especially on Thursday, the front kind of stalls down there further south into North Texas, and that produces more of an overrunning type setup, tapping into some of that higher instability across North Texas and as well as into Arkansas. And that's going to spell more storms as we head into Thursday afternoon for North Texas, Oklahoma, those areas into Arkansas, back into Louisiana. This is probably going to be extended further north areas of southern portions of Missouri. But nonetheless, this is where the severe storms would likely unfold on a Thursday. But here's the heavier rains as well. So you got the slight risk for excessive rainfall in place. All these red shaded areas, this is over that 24-hour time span from Thursday morning to Friday morning. So it kind of gives you an idea of where the heaviest rains would likely unfold across North Texas, but especially there in eastern Oklahoma, as well as into Arkansas, with those several inches amounts unfolding and some isolated severe storms in lighter amounts as you swing further northeast as we head into the mid-Atlantic as well as into the Northeast, with likely a quarter to possibly up to 3/4 of inch of rain. But notice the dry slot coming out behind it. All this after you dealt with all the severe storms up across the upper Midwest, you're going to be drying out in a big way once we start the day on Friday. But it's probably last long because the cold front stalls, but then it actually comes back as a warm front heading into Friday. So between Friday morning and Saturday morning, that adds the instability further north. So once the cold front stalls, it's going to be lifting back up as a warm front and then overturning that conditions again across areas of the Tennessee Valley, back to the Ohio Valley, and getting back into those areas across Iowa as well as into Minnesota, during the day on between Friday afternoon into your Saturday morning time frame. And then as we swing into your Saturday, that will produce another storm system. So you can see it's pretty active, folks. So further south, we got the south wind. We still got the warmer air pushing in from the south. We got the ridge across Mexico, but we still have the cooler pocket aloft coming in from the northwest. And then we've got another cooler pocket that will be lifting back over to the upper Midwest as well as into Wisconsin again. And that's going to probably spell more trouble for more storms as we heading into Saturday night time frame across Wisconsin, back into Illinois again, as well as Indiana. So you can definitely see it's very active. So I will keep you definitely updated on the latest updates from this severe weather outbreak that's going to be unfolding across the next couple of days. Be sure to like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.